conversation. It goes without saying, Andrew, we are so fucking proud of you. You know I don't like a lot of shit. And I gotta say, honestly, like, for a while I was like, oh, this is one of my favorite plays of Andrew's, but I gotta say this is one of my favorite plays of any playwright. So, welcome everyone. My name is Guadalís Carmen. I'm the founder and co-artistic director of the Latinx Playwright Circle. And I'll let the rest of the wonderful panelists up here with me introduce themselves, and kind of we'll start the conversation that way.
Hi everyone, my name is Iyvon E, and I'm the artistic director of the Parsnip show. And a huge Andrew fan!
Who also produced a reading of this for the Parsnip ship as a podcast and everything. I wrote this, I'm Andrew, I wrote this gay shit.
Hi, I'm Julian Jiménez, and I'm a playwright, and I was also a mentor to Andrew in the Latinx playwriting circle.
So tonight's conversation is going to be just a little bit different than maybe what a lot of us are used to in talkbacks. I think everyone up here has a history with big works and big pieces that traditionally are seen as hard to produce. And I think watching a piece like this, any one of us are like, oh, this can be in any theater in New York City, and yet it is pieces like these that are considered hard to produce. And so one of the things that I kind of wanted to start off with, Andrew, how is your heart right now?
Exploding constantly. I mean, this is, it's been the best time of my life, and I've never laughed harder or like cried more or than anything. My family's here, that's my mommy right there. My brother will be there to do mommy with the family. So it's just, I feel so overwhelmed. So much good is happening, and the cast and I and the crew and the production team have all talked about that our bitchiest theater friends have come and still been swayed. And so I'm just, the fact that each one of us has that person that's also saying something beautiful has just been incredible. And I think in terms of what we're talking about, producibility, this being my first professional production, and I've learned more in the past 6 weeks than I think in 10 years of playwriting. Like my mentor Migdalia is also here. And those of us, there's so many of us who have been touched by Migdalia in the room. And Migdalia, and you're sitting right by my mommy. It's like a theater mommy in the room. But you know, Migdalia as like a baby girl to Fornez and a protege of hers, and what so many of our elders in Latino theater kind of teach us, it's about listening to your instrument. And I think for the first time, I think I've never listened more to myself in the past 6 weeks. And it feels like this is a community. It feels like all these people that have produced the play before, or like so many people have shared it or encouraged it to keep going, and so it feels like a product of community. So I feel so, everyone, like tonight was the best audience yet. I'm not just saying that because a lot of Latinos are here. I feel great. I feel so empty. I feel like Betty at the act 2. Drained. I feel so good.
Awesome. I do want to shout out our 4 legends, our 4 LPC legends, which are Migdalia Cruz,
Hey.
Carmen Rivera, Cándido Tirado, and of course, Julian.
No.
I was. The first time I experienced I Wanna Fuck Like Romeo and Juliet was through the Parsnip ship.
That our Cupid, Jackie Guillen, was in.
Yes, Jackie Guillen was in, phenomenal. These actors were the shit. But one of the really special things about the Parsnip ship is that there's like a structure for the night, but the plays are always big.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of just ask you, not about process or anything, but just about what has been the thing you've loved the most, and maybe not so much, about the Parsnip ship and bringing in these big plays for folks to experience?
Such a great question. What I love the most is that we can get as big as we want to, and there's no limitations, right? It's always about pushing imagination and going forth. Because Andrew submitted this play when it was like 30 pages and like sketches of these scenes, but I was so moved by 30 pages. That's very rare when you're like, when it feels like, this is like a rough draft, but you're like, this is a gem. This is like, yeah, it's rough right now, but this is a gem. And I remember going, if you can get it by this date and it's like audio ready, we're gonna do it. And you handed me I just fell in love. I fell in love, and it's hard. And it's rare sometimes to just fall in love with the script so quickly, but that is what your play did, and that is what it reinforces. And so I love that you can fall in love with big ideas and not get stifled by it. And what the worst thing is all these plays deserve to get produced somehow, somewhere, some shape, some form. Like, they can get produced. This was able to get produced. The thing is, like, it needs to be everywhere. Like, this play should be all over the United States. It should be going to the communities that you brought to life in these vivid, magical, hilarious ways. And I think that's the worst part, is like, fuck y'all, we need to get this play someplace else.
I think
It's the Hackensack.
Yes, exactly.
It's also so true of like, Sarah Norris, our beautiful artistic director of New Light, the other day when we were meeting with press agents to talk about the show, and Sarah said something, Iyvon as a producer saw 30 pages in an idea and believed, right? Sarah was eloquently said in this press meeting, she was like, we were really scared, but it still was their favorite to like, and so it's the fact that it's also in terms of these producibilities, or for playwrights like Julian and I who write kind of big and epic and faggoty and large, and that it's like, it's also like this question of like, why aren't people creative, like it was just such a beautiful thing that both of them took a chance on. They saw the heart, like, it feels also like lazy analysis too, when they're like, oh, how do we do this? I mean, didn't you go to school for theater? Like, isn't that the only skill that we were all bitching about when the pandemic happened, that we make fictional shit happen? And that, I don't know, yeah, it's so interesting and beautiful to hear.
Yeah.
See, Julian.
Yeah.
So, Oso Fabuloso.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Bundle of Sticks. Bruise and Thorn.
This also featured Ashton. Where is it?
Yeah.
Ashton. We share the queers.
Big, beautiful stories that off the page anyone would dismiss as that's too big for us to be able to produce.
Yeah.
What I would love to hear you talk about is, after you've birthed these pieces, how do you take care of yourself?
Well, it's interesting because like I feel like and I feel like this is experience that I got from your play tonight too, that I'm wondering if it's the same. I used to write in a very small way, to put myself into sort of a box, right? So like and I would. And I was trying to emulate something, but I was writing out of a place of shame. And when I decided not to write out of a place of shame is when my stories got larger. Because as a queer person, it's, it's not Aristotelian, right? It's not the straight path. We have to take bizarre paths. Fuck with time signature, right? Our growth was stunted. I remember growing up, like later in my 20s, experiencing and going through things that I should have gone through when I was 12, right? So our ideas of time signature and space and scale are very different than, I think, people who travel a normal straight path. So I actually took care of myself by writing larger stories and going out of the box, because for the first, I would say, about 7 years, I was writing out of a place of shame, and I was not okay. And it wasn't until I wrote my first play that was, oh, no one's ever going to produce this, is when it got produced. And I was like, oh, that's what they were waiting for, my voice, not my shame. They weren't waiting for my fear.
Do you feel like, because I saw you perform in Oso Fabuloso, and I'm just like, that is one free motherfucker.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, did you feel a freeness in that? Like, I saw it, but, when you're up on stage, like, it's a different feeling.
Yeah, I mean, there's a freedom in unapologetically saying this is who I am and not caring about, and I was outside in like a jockstrap and a harness, right? So it's like, it's like.
And in the rain.
And in the rain. So there's a feeling of freedom. And that's exactly how I felt tonight. Like, I felt like, I don't know, there was something about seeing your work on stage freed me as someone who is like, okay, people are doing it, like, it's happening. So it just, so there's a freedom in that, and a risk taking that seems risky. I would say seems risky to other people, but as queer people, I'm risking every single day of my life, because I have no other choice. Like, when I chose to be authentic, there was never any going back. So what you see is what you get, and there's no way to close it.
It's also that so much for us, those of us that are playwrights in the room, so many people here are also from INTAR and INTAR family, and there's people here I've known for like a decade that I met through INTAR, and we pass these things down. And so I actually met Julian 10 years ago with this queer play festival that Dave Ansuelo put up at INTAR for a weekend. And it was your first draft of Locusts Have No King, another unproducible play that was produced at INTAR. And I remember, it's also this question of freedom. I feel like when I read Migdalia's plays when I was like just starting to like, I want to put pen to paper, or when I encountered Julian's play was the first time I saw queer Latinos being also funny. And like, that play Locusts Have No King was about 4 gay Catholic priests, and it's hysterical and it's powerful, and there's a character becomes like a living locust on stage. And I remember in the early drafts there was a comment. So like, I don't know, when I think of that too, it's also like the freedom in seeing yourself, that like, I just remember I was like, oh, that guy's doing it, and his voice is so real. Like, Julian was able, I just remember, and I saw it a couple nights because I was doing box office, and I remember that every night it was different and funny, and so I was like, oh, that motherfucker's doing it, I can do it too. Like, there's so much about, like, when we think about these things, because you're right, we're not Aristotelian, right? And queerness defines the form, and the way you maneuver queerness defines the form. So, and you can only do that in a unique way, but you have to be given permission to do that. And like, seeing Julian's work gave me that permission early on, when I met you when I was young and beautiful at 20.
It's like, and I also think it's about a part of the Latino experience too. I think the way that we dream, the way that we go through life. I mean, I was inspired by Miriam's flowers.
Me too.
Magdalia's, like, I teach that in my queer theory course, like, because to me it's like, and not necessarily because it's queer per se, but there's ways that it opened me up as a queer person, and it's like, you don't even know. The honesty of it. And it's like, and I remember, and I don't know if you ever had this, like, I always had this moment where people were like, well, are you going to be a queer playwright or are you going to be a Latino playwright?
Oh yeah.
And then it's like, it's like, fuck that. My identity is intersectional.
Right.
So screw you. I'm gonna do both.
Another playwright that we all know, and a lot of people know in this room, Georgina Escobar,
Yeah.
Yes.
always said that. She said that at the Fornes workshop when I was there with Migdalia in Chicago, where she said it always feels like two forces are pulling at her, because in one room you're a maricón, and the other one you're like a Latino, right? So it's like the way those answers, and Georgina's also another playwright whose voice lives in those two worlds, in the unreal and the real, and the queer and the not. And so it is at times feels like a pull, for sure.
And also just the way, like, I mean, also knowing Gio's work and knowing like how prescient it is. And I think throughout the entire piece, watching it, I just kept thinking to myself, this is the world that we're like. You use all of these metaphors, but at the end of the day, like it feels like we are in a very prescient, bubbling moment. And it's wild because you wrote it in
16.
And just how relevant it feels to today, right? Like the root of us all going through this journey to get to know what is the root of who we are, wherever it is, and then learning to love. And like all of these amazing like things, right? And how the world, like it feels to me like it's gonna explode any day. And so I think that's why I like was out there and I was like trying to hold back the tears and my heart is still like breaking because this play is just so big and so needed.
And so what I love about it too is that it's inherent. The queerness is so inherent because of the humor. And it's like you're talking about sexual abuse, you're talking about these shame, like having sex through shame, like all these like deep things, but that's what we do as queer people because we had to laugh through it. If not, it was just almost too much and we wouldn't have made it. And I think that the irony of it, the irreverence of your work, and the way that your actors embodied them, incredible. Like I mean, it was just, and also the director Jesse, who
also directed
Bruise and Thorn. I mean, it just creates a safe space for us to be super authentic, super cared for, and safe to explore so many heavy but also really beautiful things.
And it's usually not given, like this is to me one of the most radical plays that there are, and that's why it's so needed right now. So I just want to say thank you. This was a gift. I do want to open it up for a few questions that maybe the audience might have. I think we have some time. So any questions from the audience, we can open it up. Yes.
Hi, Andrew.
Ah! Those are two of my girlfriends from LA who are here.
I am so incredibly impressed by you. My jaw's on the floor. Fantastic job. My question is, when you were writing all these characters, was there one character that you sort of like wrote yourself into, or that you sort of like saw a reflection of you, or maybe there was some healing being done by that character that you were writing?
Yeah, the Fire Island tricks at Alejandro was fun.
Fair.
Fair. That's a good question, stranger. I don't know. I mean, this cast is like, everyone involved in this process has talked about it special, and collectively we have probably 1 million years experience in theater with different productions, and so the fact that all of us, and they lifted these characters in such a way that, and helped me, a lot of changes happened, and I didn't think going into this process I would make any changes to the version that you guys knew or you knew, and they ended up being so good and asked such great questions that I, like that whole Betty chunk with the monologue and the inner script, that was something that we all talked about in table work, the inner script that each of us have towards love. And that that whole scene where Valentine and the lovers are here, and we jokingly called it the Romeo and Juliet scene, right, where they're the rock, and that was all really new. And I don't know, I think I had opinions before this production, but they really brought out the character so well that everyone who's seen it, and it's been interesting to see, like my friends who know me like a sibling kind of way, see me a lot in Valentine. You know, people, my own ex-lovers see a lot of me in Alejandro, right? Or like my close, like, I don't know, I'm curious what my family would think of where they see me the most, but I think they each hold they're each a different version of me in relationship to love. I feel like Betty is me, like, kind of the one that always pines for love, and I think I always have, and I think this comes from being queer, of like, remember what it was like wishing you saw yourself in these love tales or rom-coms that we didn't get. Cupid is my bitterness. I really do feel like that section of Cupid talking about that's really also where I feel like I lie. I'm also Colombiano, so I think that's like, there's a bitterness that sometimes that comes with, no, there is, because Colombia's gone through a lot of pain, so I think there's like a lot of sometimes jadedness that comes from that. Valentine is my side that's like, will always try to believe in love and get people to be in love and get people to be happy. Yeah, I think each of them they're so clearly me now. I don't know, different parts of me.
Well, I'm Betty.
Also, so Guadalís is a fantastic playwright and screenwriter and writing for TV and is incredible and should shoot up to the world. But she also once was a dental hygienist. And so when Guadalís first saw this play, and there was a line that Betty has of like, this is why I picked this. I don't have fireworks in my life. I remember seeing Guadalís go. Guadalís was also our dental hygienist consultant for this production. She helped us find the right bibs. I'm sure you can talk to Liz Ramos about her.
I was definitely triggered.
But that's what it also feels like. These actors brought so much to these characters that it feels kind of like, well, I don't want to stand J.K. Rowling, but Hogwarts is like a good example because everyone feels like they're a different person. It feels like they're a different house.
There could be a BuzzFeed article.
Oh, for sure.
Which character
Which are you? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
If anyone has a hookup at BuzzFeed. Any other questions?
Okay, I feel like I'm in the wrong place or something.
No, you're in the right place.
No, I'm a straight white male. I'm not a playwright and I don't speak Spanish.
You are the audience.
We fuck straight white men. That's so many. Sorry.
I told you. And the play is universal, to be sure. But I am really wondering who your intended audience is, or if there is an intended audience.
I don't know if I think the beautiful part of that is you're not the first straight white man that's encountered this play and enjoyed it, so there has actually been a beauty for that. But Jesse actually said right before he left to Texas, he's based in Texas and broke all our hearts by leaving, but something he said was seeing older queer people in the audience and how they kind of leaned in, especially in the Benny Alejandro moments. Yeah. So I feel like it's always, there's an added invitation to, the way you all were responding to the Spanish, I was like geeking out, and more than any other audience, right? So that's a moment to give, I don't know, I think of playmaking a lot the way I do with gifts, and I really do want you to come to my shows and feel a little bit of everything. So I don't know, I think that necessitates everyone feeling emotion regardless, but there is a deepness to that happens to the queers and Latinos that see this play, and yeah.
But I would say also, for me, and I don't know, I feel like we've talked about this before, that we're writing specifically, I'm writing specifically for queer audiences, and it's great. It's great though, and queer Latino, and that's why I love that you didn't have any translation of the Spanish or translation of queer terms that people, because the thing is, it's when I was growing up watching West Side Story, I had to translate, Maria to a man. I saw a man and a woman love story. I had to do a translation of what that felt like. So right now I'm writing as who I am, and if other people enjoy it, that's great, and at long last they can do that translation. But I'm not responsible for it. But everyone's welcome to the party. There's just a guest list.
There is a guest list. That's exactly.
Usually waiting online.
Yeah. But you still got in.
That's a really beautiful way to. I think when it's like talking about these big plays, right? The follow-up is like, well, who's the intended audience? Who's the demographic? And I think that restricts art in a way that feels so prohibitive. And I think looking at it like everyone's welcome to the party, but there is a guest list. Like I think that's a really beautiful way of like making it feel like it's a thing that should be everywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna quote you.
No, you don't even have to.
But I'm gonna take it.
It's for everyone.
Yep.
Hi, Andrew. So,
Jazz, hi.
so when I met you, it was in 2020, right before the pandemic started, and you were preparing to bring this play into the world over 2 years ago now. So how has that experience been, waiting, so long when you were ready to go, like 2 years ago?
Thanks. Jazz is a fantastic novelist. Her book comes out next month. She's a queer icon. Support.
Queer writer.
Yes. I'll always remember Jazz, and so we were at McDowell together, a writing residency, and that's where we found out about COVID. So it was like forever. We were in a little bubble. And we were like, oh well, thank God we're here, right? So like our dreams got stomped on, but
That's a big.
I mean, Sarah and I have talked about this. The cast. So some of the cast are people that we originally cast. Some of our design team, and when we were gathering everyone again, there was lots of broken hearts, and everyone in this room as theater people have experienced this. But especially with theater and live performance, so many people left, and we had beautiful responses from like our original lighting designers sent this note of like, I wish more than anything I could do this, and I'm not in this world anymore, and I can't. And I also think if I had tried to like do the same amount of work then that I did this time around, it wouldn't have worked. I mean, all of us, I think that there was so much pain when that happened, and I was getting all these rejections at the same time. And when I got that, the rejection I'm talking about, when I was like, so I was at phone calls on McDowell, and I got a nasty ass rejection. Then this got shut down. Then the pandemic happened. Then the guy I was seeing with was like, I don't know if like we're a thing. I'm like, oh, cool. So everything was.
And then you grew out your beard.
Right. I did grow out my beard. But then like I think I'm now weirdly so grateful for the pandemic.
Yeah.
Like I don't think it was this specific arrangement of people that made this so powerful. So I'm like oddly, even though that in so many ways I felt like at the time was destroying my life, it really felt like it just cleared the area and to like let me grow again. So yeah, I love you.
I would say what felt the most resonant in listening to it this time was the Betty talking about loneliness. After 2 years where we're still trying to reconnect, and a year of loneliness, I think that's also part of why this play is universal. Like I think before the pandemic, some of us felt lonely in certain regards, but then we actually had this physical loneliness. And learning to reconnect and get to those corners, as you say, like it's like a lot of hard work. It's a lot of like emotional work that I think a lot of us are confronting. A lot of us are reeling from the effects of COVID. Like, we're seeing the effects now of loneliness on our relationships and how we reconnect with each other without getting overwhelmed, right? And without shutting out and going to the dark parts of your heart and your space inside. And so I was most moved by Betty's talk of loneliness, because I think we're all reeling from that.
I feel like the entire row that I was sitting in when she was talking, and we were all like, "Ooh,
yeah, shit." We're like, damn, that's me.
There were moments when you snatched hearts.
Yeah.
My heart was literally, you snatched it. Like I could feel it. I was like, oh fuck.
And yes, it's the precision of language. We're so precise with language, talking about how English doesn't capture the emotion, the colors, the nuances of shame. It's
Thanks for letting us know.
Yeah. You put into words, I think, some of the things that we as non-writers, some of us can't grab and hold on to, right? Like you helped us hold on to it and go like, oh, I recognize that. I feel that. I see that. And so, I mean, beautiful work. Beautiful work.
We have time for one more, and then we'll.
Hi, I'm Jess's partner.
Okay.
You're brilliant, incandescent. My question is, after a work of this length and this production, while you're working, what is your aftercare like? And what is your connection to your ancestors throughout this work?
Oh.
Who do you feel you're
Come on, final question.
Back to the ancestors.
What's your ancestors? I'm always asked by my mentors, like, what does your ancestors say to you during this work? What is the dialogue they would give you? Do they agree, disagree? Like, what tensions and beloveds do they honor with you? Because it felt so frequent in every freaking monologue. I was like, oh, somebody's carrying you and moving
Oh.
you. So thank you for that.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you for bringing the ancestors into the Real talk.
Aftercare yoga. I think but right before the pandemic, anxiety was really, I struggle with anxiety a lot, but was really like choking me senseless, which is why, like, to Jazz's question, I wouldn't have been able to do the same kind of writing. So this time around, I felt like I'm really blessed right now to have a lot of time and space through my own hustle and to give writing. So I think as much silence as I can give it. I don't know, my mommy on our first preview texted that bisabuela Rosmira, her abuela who raised her, and my mamita in Colombia helped raise my brother and I. And so when my mom said that on our first preview, that abuela Rosmira was with us, that felt like, I know this play is also such a product of my family. One of my cousins saw a reading of this in Atlanta, and I hadn't remembered at the time, but we all spent, when our parents immigrated from Colombia, we spent the first part of our lives in North Jersey, and so that for us is in so many ways such a really emotionally powerful part. So in Hackensack and Lodi is where we grew up. I found out today that's also where the Sopranos are. But I felt like that. I don't know. I think they were, I don't know, my family is in everything, like Spanish, or even words like faltón, or like the Colombianisms and the different ways. I don't know, I feel like that's all wrapped up in there in everything I write always.
And can I just say something? Also, I want to thank you. Hearing the word ancestors, it's because you are continuing, you're writing our history and you're writing the legacy. And I'm younger than you. Old. You're younger. I'm older than you. So what I mean is that I grew up with, my mentors were obliterated by the previous plague.
Yeah.
And by the murderer Ronald Reagan, and I grew up without them. So this play, and having I have a student here, my former student of mine, who is seeing this, and just being seen, is how, to me, the ancestors play, our queer ancestors play a role in that. So thank you.
Yeah. And also that, like, I think this play is like these people are creating a chosen family, like combining in a different way, particularly with Betty, in the way Betty and Benny kind of wrap up in each other. It feels like that's also so much a part of like, for as queers, it's so important to have our chosen family. I always think of this line Cupid says in that Rumi poem, where she says, familia de sangre, familia hecha de experiencias. And that's what it feels like to me, being what that is, right? Like, I have my blood family here, and I have my family made by another type of blood as well.
That was the translation.
I can use
There's also something really important that you're doing, and I want to shout out Daniela Gonzalez y Perez for also doing this.
Our incredible talent player. Also wrote a gay-ass play with wings and demons and shit. Incredible.
There's so much about, those of us that come from colonized lands and are descendants of colonized people and enslaved people. There's so much that we have lost in our history and our ancestral history that the work is upon us storytellers. It is a genuine gift to be the vessel and carrier of these stories. And the both of you are doing really beautiful work in recreating the mythology that was ripped from us and creating new work so that our descendants are able to have work to breathe from.
Thank you guys so much. Best night of my life so far.
Please, whatever social medias you have, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Meta, whatever it's called, and all of the other ones, please talk about this show. Please talk about Andrew. Please talk about I Want to Fuck, like Romeo and Juliet. Yes. Whether the rest of the show is sold out, it is important for these shows to be trending so that people can talk about them and wish to see more of them. Yes. Thank you all.